Good morning and welcome to 5 Minutes of Freedom. It is the 17th day of October, and it is gonna be an awesome Sunday. I want to say thank you so much for joining us here at 5 Minutes of Freedom. God bless you, and just thank you so much. You can find 5 Minutes of Freedom on archangeloutreach.org. 5 Minutes of Freedom is brought to you by Archangel Outreach Ministries. You can also find 5 Minutes of Freedom on YouTube, Facebook, or archangeloutreach.org. You can send us comments, requests, concerns, complaints. I don't care what you got to say, but I want to hear from you. Send us a comment on YouTube or Facebook. We'll discuss it. We'll talk about it. I'll talk about it in the next show, but you got to send me something to talk about, or I won't have nothing to talk about, or I'll keep rambling on what I've been rambling on about, and that's the Bible. That's the Bible verses that come up to me that God influences me with, and usually Bible verses that I talk to other people with that have impacted me in past days, and I bring them forth to you to read, talk about them, because it really has been impacting my life. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is, yesterday morning, I went to the Victory Mission and did a Bible study. I do it every Saturday morning. I feel the need to go back, because I did live in the Victory Mission. I feel a need to go back and continue to preach and share and just try to give hope, show that I've been in the same places that those people have been, those guys have been, and that they can come up out of the, if you want to use a term, help them come up out of the miry clay, help them come up out of the depths of their dark and deep and just intricate past of sin, and show them that way. Much like Paul has done throughout the New Testament. Paul lived a life of sin, persecuting the Jews, killing Jews, doing things to people that should not be done, breaking commandments, if you will, killing people. It says, thou shalt not kill. But God can use him too. Jesus can use anything. That blood that Jesus spilled can cover anything. He covered it for Paul. He can cover it for me. He can cover it for everybody at Victory Mission. And most importantly, he can cover it for you. Yes, you, the ones I'm talking to right now that are watching this 5 Minutes of Freedom. But here's the thing. Are you willing to preach the word? Do you feel obligated to preach the word? Excuse me. Well, a lot of people say, well, I'm not a preacher. That's okay, because there's another way of preaching that I think sometimes people don't even think about. I want to read you the scripture. It comes out of 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 16. It says, Paul is saying this to the Corinthians, yet when I preach the gospel, I cannot boast, for I am compelled to preach. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. And one of the things I was telling the men at the Victory Mission, I said, what do you preach about? Well, you preach about Scripture. Yeah. What else do you preach about? Well, you preach about God. Yeah. What else do you preach about? Well, you preach about Jesus. Yeah. What else can you preach about? Even if you don't, can you preach if you don't know the Bible? Do you have something to tell that is gospel? Because it says right here, I feel compelled to preach the gospel, for I am compelled to preach. What is the gospel? The gospel is, yes, this book, but what is this book? This book is merely a testimony of what God has done in people's lives. If God is doing something in your life, tell your testimony. I know my story. You know your story. Other people know their stories. And if you start telling your story, you start sharing your testimony, you are sharing the gospel of God. When I started sharing my testimony way back over a year ago, I knew one scripture, 2 Corinthians 3:16. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil will be taken away. Only scripture I knew. The only one I could quote. I couldn't even quote John 3:16. Today, after sharing my testimony, being willing to share the gospel of what God has done in my life, has opened the door, has given me mental stability that I can remember scriptures, which backs up my testimony today. You don't have to know every scripture in this book. You can know your own story, which everybody does. Don't tell me that you don't, because that is the gospel of your life. That is the gospel of God working in your life. So guess what? You should feel compelled to share the gospel today. The gospel that is on your heart, the gospel that you know in your mind, the gospel that is your life. That gospel coincides with the Bible because this is the gospel of other people's testimony. This is the gospel of how God has worked in their life. If you don't understand the Bible, you can still preach. Preach what you know. What you know is your story. You coincide with what you hear and what you learn out of the Bible. You will grow beyond leaps and bounds, and you are preaching, my brother. If you didn't know it, you know it now. You're preaching the gospel because the gospel lives within you, and you are a true messenger for Christ. So preach the word today. Tell your story. Share what you know. You will grow by leaps and bounds. I guarantee you, I don't tell you this because I've learned it. I tell you this because I've lived it. This is 5 Minutes of Freedom, brought to you by Archangel Outreach Ministries. God bless you and have a wonderful Sunday.